Hello and welcome back to New Paradigm Healing. This series focuses on Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy. Our intention is to educate, inform, and support the conscious and responsible use of ayahuasca in the Western context. If you want to know more about Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy and our upcoming trainings and workshops, sign up for our mailing list to be the first one to know about the latest news at avatarhealingarts.com. So hello and welcome back to Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy podcast, and I'm so happy today to be here with two of my very dear sisters, Bonnie Divinama and Casey Kennedy. You know both of them from the roundtables and from the podcast already, so we're not gonna do big introductions here. And today I'm really excited. We're gonna talk about healing the inner child and using this beautiful medicine to to help to integrate that aspect of ourselves. Sorry, so I'm very excited to start these conversations, and just want to say hi to my sisters. Welcome Bonnie, welcome Casey, good to have you here. And I just want to start with really talking about what is the inner child or the wounded child for those people who might not be familiar with this concept or with this phrase. But I think that if you are listening to this podcast, probably you encountered your healing, your inner child, your wounded child already. But from my perspective, really, my experience in healing is that a lot of the trauma that we suffer comes from childhood simply because of the reason that when we are children, we don't have the strength, the tools, the capacity, the awareness to deal with stressful or traumatic situations in a healthy, mature way. That's kind of logical. And what happens is that when we experience something traumatic, that we kind of separate from the pain from that experience. It's so cute. Hi, little kitty. Here's another healer, another beautiful creature joining us. So nice. So what happens is, that as we experience deep stress or trauma when we are children, we kind of disconnect from that aspect and put this pain, separate from this pain, from this trauma, and kind of, you can imagine that we put it in a box and we shove it away simply because we are not able to hold it, to process it, or to respond to it, in a in a healthy, mature way with awareness. And these parts of us, even though we don't necessarily feel them anymore, but they are still staying somehow connected to us, because everything is connected, and we can certainly see the effects of this fragmentation in our adult lives. And some of the symptoms could be what I experienced personally, is just inability to receive, inability to create healthy, loving relationships, addictions, different mental, emotional problems. It can be even physical disease, or just not being able to open up and receive life in its fullest. And also another sign or symptom can be that we keep repeating kind of the same mistakes, and we are somehow in this catch-22, that even though we desire something completely different, we desire something better, we just keep somehow ending up in the same situations with the same character. So that would be for me kind of like a result of this fragmentation, of this childhood trauma. So I think, just to start with, I'm gonna just give the space to Bonnie and Casey just to reflect that how do you perceive this wounded child or this inner child, and what is that you think, how it manifested in your life, or how it manifests just in life, in people's life in general, that we can share with our audience.
Sure. Thank you, Nina, and thanks again for welcoming me. Thank you also, Sister Casey, for this important topic that just is infinitely deep, and I'm learning all the time more and more about. Um, so, what I'd like to do is actually just speak to a personal experience that's just happened recently, right? Which I shared some of with you, Nina, which is I just came out of the jungle. I just came out of the Amazon. I was there for some advanced practitioner training. And when we go deep into these trainings, especially in the jungle, we can expect that some stuff is going to come up. And so when I was in the jungle, I was really wanting to connect with the part of my inner child, the young girl who was absolutely fearless. And as a child, I really was truly fearless, to the point that I would sometimes injure myself, and even that didn't stop me. And so when I was going into the jungle this time, knowing that I was going to be going through some really deep things physically, some very challenging physical things, um, fear naturally began to arise. In some ways, a little bit resistance began to arise. And I wanted to tap into that inner child who just never even considered resistance, just pushed past resistance and just did, with such pleasure and such joy, the most challenging and seemingly to me now not so fun physical things. But um and as I wanted to reconnect with that part of myself, to reignite this part of myself that still lives within me, so I could really move into these challenges that I was going to face with this really powerful, fearless inner child, I forgot and then remembered that, of course, the other parts of her were going to have to show up as well, which meant the child who was also somewhat ostracized by her peers, uh, really wasn't acknowledged or validated for any of the things that she excelled at, was often the target of others' projections and judgments and insecurities. And also the child who was always sick, right? So I always had an illness of some sort or another, and that goes very, very deep as to why, why that was, which I later found out when I did that inner child work, why this child was always sick. So those parts had to come too. There was no way that I could recall the really good, positive, fun side of this inner child without also recalling these painful parts of her. And when we go deep into the work, as I was doing in the jungle, working with Kambo every day, as well as with ayahuasca, and doing a master plant diet with Ahosacha, uh, she came, and when she showed up, boy, did she really show up. And it was just like I was replaying my childhood in so many ways. Here I was going, doing all of these amazing things and really meeting all of the challenges that I was facing with fearlessness and with full trust and with surrender. And at the same time, I was experiencing a lot of others' projection, judgment. I often felt like I was absolutely not being heard. I literally developed a lump in my throat, um, and then a lot of physical things started to come up during that time as well, like illness types of things. So, and herein lies more work for me to do in that wounded child, right? She showed up. She wanted to heal. She came and she said, "Hey, if you want to integrate me, you have to integrate all of me." And so those also were the parts that had fragmented off, so to speak, right? And now I had the opportunity to see her again, and now also to do the work that follows, because when we're doing this kind of work, especially in the jungle, and right, 3 ceremonies, 3 ayahuasca ceremonies in a 1 week period, 5 combo sessions, aho sacha, just being in the jungle, so many things, there's not a lot of time for integration. It wasn't until I actually was able to step out of the jungle and then start to reflect and having not left with the best feeling of like, wow, I didn't leave with that like warm fuzzy feeling for like the group of people I was with. I still felt like a little bit like an outsider. And then having now to turn that inward and go, it's not them, right? It's me. What's in here? What is this? What were they doing? How did we contract? So that they would play their role so that this would come up and I would see this part of myself again, this fragmented part of myself. And now herein lies the integration that follows, right? All of that deep work, because now is the time for me to journal. Now is the time for me to reflect, and now is the time for me to seek someone out like Nina, or someone like myself, and perhaps even Casey, who is going to help step me through that process, right, and take me to those places where I might not even be able to go on my own necessarily, to go deeper with this wounded child, to heal her, so I can now recall her back into my whole soul as well, and return to that place of wholeness within. So we're constantly retrieving all of these fragments, all of the places that, and being ostracized as a child, being bullied is a trauma. So certainly there were parts of me that fragmented off, that I'm ready to retrieve, right, as we say, or to recall or reclaim at this point. So I'll leave it at that. That's I think probably the best thing I can present at this point, is the personal story that I'm actually going through right now.
Thank you, sister. Well, thank you for your courage to share this. And yeah, it's very inspiring. And I think it is definitely time for collective healing, and to heal the collective wounded child as well, because I've been going through, something similar in the last few months, integrating another aspect. And for me, that was more connected to my relationships with men. That was always a big struggle and challenge in my life, and somehow I could overcome so many things in my life, and I've seen, improvement in so many ways in my quality of life, but this area always kind of stayed broken somehow, and also my inability to create and manifest, physical things, and to hold on to material things here on this earth plane. So these two kind of aspects of my life were just deeply challenged, and even though I did so much work and healing on these, it still somehow stayed in this repeating pattern. I was still locked in this repeating pattern. And as you said, we are powerful beings, as you said, Bonnie, and we can call back this part of ourselves. And I did very powerful rituals and prayers and intentions to be able to see and integrate what is blocking me, in order to create a healthy and loving relationship with the man, and to also to create more abundance and more flow on the material plane for myself. And what came up for me was truly like shocking, and in a way very scary, that I don't really want to go into to great depth right now. But it was connected to like childhood trauma, and something that happened to me when I was a child, and some kind of just sexual violation, and betrayal, and breaking, boundaries, in childhood, in a very unspeakable way, that somehow, I didn't even had recollection of, up until recently. And as Bonnie said, my intention was to take back that power, that trust, that innocence, and that confidence, that we somehow all have, at the beginning. If you look at little children and how fearless they are, and that's why parents have to like hover them, because they just really don't have any fear, and that trust and that innocence, that is or true essence self, like shining force, that somehow getting shut down or broken, through the experiences and through the life as we are proceeding. And I was intending, also to reclaim those parts of myself. And when I did that, what came first was what is blocking that, why I was not able to step into that trust, especially, towards man, why I was not able to to create flow and to abundance on this earth plane, where all these fears were coming from. And it just it was a very, very intense, but also at the same time very liberating experience, because when I tapped into this aspect, who carried, all that pain, what happened first, that all the pain I started to experience, that wasn't experienced in the past, because I couldn't hold space for it, because I didn't have the strength, to face it and to process it and work through it. And now I have, now I have the tools, now I have the wisdom, I have the understanding, I have that connectedness, to that part of me who can hold space for all this and can go through, all that experiences and all that emotions and everything that is that was held there for such a long time. And that is not easy, so any of us, I think, who is tapped into this work, it's not easy to, and we always talk with the medicine that first how things get worse before they get better. And I think, with prayer as well, when we are asking for something, especially in this context with this beautiful mother plant, she is showing us, what is the blockage, what is blocking us from having what we are asking for, so we can become aware of that and we can process that and let go, and then we naturally are, trust and innocence and confidence is there, is not something, I think that we need to acquire. At least in my experience, that was all underneath it, just naturally. I didn't have to do anything to build trust back, because the trust was there. I was just disconnected, from that trust for such a long time, and there were experiences and memories for me that were blocking my capacity to connect to that trust and to experience it and to live from that space. So I just love your sharing, and thank you for sharing that. And I'm gonna just pass it to Casey and see, how your experience is, sister, with the inner child aspect.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Bonnie. Your energy has just been amazing. I feel like I know you. So when you said like inner child, I kind of was thinking about like two different parts. So like my inner child being like that child that I hadn't healed, and then my inner child, that adult, when I am triggered and my inner child comes out and I act like that child. And so I feel like I connect with both of your stories in different ways. Like Bonnie, when you were talking about your throat, I remember, and still to this day, when I'm not in my space, when I'm not honest with myself, it'll start clogging up, and I can feel that it's like a lump in my throat. And I remember when I was in the jungle, that was a huge point, because I had been silenced. I had or felt silenced for the majority of my childhood. So when I first started digging into this area of my life, it was maybe like 8 years ago, and I started doing EMDR therapy with a talk therapist, and she was just phenomenal. But I didn't know, I knew that I had these behaviors as an adult where I would do everything, say everything that people wanted me to do, say, and be for them. And I didn't understand why. I didn't even know what it was that was me. But I had to grow up really early. I was estranged from my father at about the age of 8. And there was a portion where me and my brother were like taken to a different state. And it was like, if I were to speak up, there was a huge consequence or punishment that came from speaking what I wanted. And there was a lot of spiritual abuse with the Bible. And so anything that was questioned to any type of authority, there was physical consequences because of it. But the more I dug into why I was acting the way that I acting, or the patterns and behaviors, all went back to this little child that I hadn't healed. And doing that light work and that therapy just brought just the awareness of her. Because like Nina, I think when you were saying like a lot of things were like you don't remember a lot, like it was a lot suppressed. I don't remember a ton of things. Like I remember being in gymnastics and that's it. Like I don't remember. So when I started to look at her, that little girl, these memories started. And then with the medicine, holy cow, like I just started slowly recalling all of these experiences that I had now been prepared for. But had I not had eased into it before, it would have been a lot to take in, because I don't think I was prepared to discover what I discovered. And so now when that girl comes up, I see her and love her, and we get through it. But it comes up, and it's a constant battle that I've been working on. And it's, instead of digging into that sad little girl, I look at that, and I'm going to get emotional. I look at the survivor and what she's been through and how strong that girl is. Because had I not gone through that, I wouldn't be here. And my fear of talking to you guys and being vulnerable is insane, because I'm on the other side of the camera 99.999% of the time. So this is just tough, but I see it in a beauty, and like, holy shit, that girl is strong as hell to get through that. So my inner child's become my best friend. That wounded girl has become my teacher, and I'm really grateful.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you.
We feel you totally.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think, you know, that you brought this great wisdom to the table, that if you think any of our listeners that you don't have a wounded child, just look at your life when you were triggered, you know, and that's when, as Casey said, we regress back into that child self, you know, when triggers come up. And I learned to look at these triggers as opportunities to heal, you know, and to discover, you know, that where this child is still kind of alive, you know, and where the pain is still held. Because I think we can see in our lives and in other people's life that you can be like 70 and just regress back into the child in like 1 minute, and then act like a child, you know, act like a total child. And that's what we are talking about here, that these triggers point us to this wounded aspect, and what we still hold and carry. And you know, the fear of that we carry of speaking out and defend ourselves and all those things, it's something, you know, that we need to consciously work through. And I think that oftentimes, you know, a big part of the healing is a learning experience, because we talked about this topic, you know, in previous podcast, how we inherit this chain of pain, and the trauma and pain is being passed down through the generations, and our caregivers and our environment is too dysfunctional to a certain extent. At least I never seen a completely fully functional family, or, you know, divine love and everything. So you know, when we have difficult experiences, we learn dysfunctional behavior to cope with it. So we don't have, most of us don't have, you know, good resources, good tools, and good understanding at the beginning how to cope with these experiences in a healthy way, because simply our parents and our environment is not coping in a healthy way either. So I believe, for example, that all addictions is a trauma response, is coping with trauma. And if we look around, like, I don't even know one person, you know, who doesn't have some kind of addictive behavior. And so I think that part of the problem is that on top of the trauma that is being created and we all kind of experience to a certain extent, we don't have tools how to resolve it. And all we see is dysfunction, you know, is dysfunctional coping mechanism. Yeah, just, you know, drink something or take a pill or go shopping or swallow it down or pretend that you are okay, so on and so forth. So I think for me, like a big part of it was really learning, how to respond to these triggers in a more conscious and healthy way, and learn how to process emotional trauma, learn how to change my perspective around different things, learn how to listen to my body and honor my body and allow my body to tell me what to do and how to heal it. And I think that without these tools and understanding, it's very difficult to heal, and to, even if we have the voluntad and the commitment to heal these aspects, we simply are not equipped, to do it. So unless you are a healer or you are somebody who is trained in these things, and even for me, sometimes it is challenging, and I always learn, obviously, new things about myself and about, healing in general. So how do you see, just this topic from your perspective of, learning dysfunctional behavior, how to respond to trauma and stressful situations, and then kind of finding your way to learn, how to do it in a healthier way, and then starting to apply that to your own life, or if you assist others, that through your own experience, supporting others with that. Bonnie?
Yeah, thank you. So I want to reflect on some of the words that have really popped out to me. And first of all, Casey, thank you for your vulnerability, for showing up on this side of the camera, to share your story and your wisdom. And so the words that are popping out to me as I've been listening are fight, battle, defend, wounded. And other words like this, and I get this picture of like how we've all got our shields up, right? And that's been a lot of our, we could say, dysfunctional patterning, yeah, but that's what we knew to do. And so much of our lives tend to be struggle and battling, and we even use these words when it comes to things like, we hear it with COVID now, right? Battling COVID, fighting depression, battling cancer. And it's like we're at war. We're at war with these things. And in the same way, we can look at our traumas, right? In our trauma response, where it's like this perhaps instinct or training to battle and to fight it, and then to shield ourselves from future trauma, right? And there's all of this going on, and there's that side of the warrior, right, which is like the wounded warrior. So in shifting, uh like as Nina was saying, and we start to gather different tools, we start to look at things differently, we start to change our story around the traumas. And and so as we do that, we're coming into the place ultimately of forgiveness and acceptance. And when we move into the place of forgiveness and acceptance, we're no longer battling, fighting, struggling, right? And so it's the same with any kind of disease. Like, rather than, battling cancer all the way, why not embrace cancer as our teacher? And with trauma, it's the same, right? Why not embrace trauma as our teacher? Like Nina mentioned, like what is it that we need to learn? And Nina, you had, oh, and just as I say that, I've got my lucky numbers up, 1033. So Nina, you had sent out this thing for it to listen to, the little soul in the sun, which is just, it's just so profound, right? And so one of the things that we've got to do with our trauma, and is to step back into that place that I like to call soul land, which is where we contracted, which is what this parable is talking about, right? Like, The little soul was the light, and it knew it was the light. But it wanted to be able to express one aspect of the light, and the little soul wanted to express and be forgiveness. But in order to be forgiveness, the little soul had to leave soul land, and it had to come to earth, and it had to be persecuted or wronged or traumatized in some way in order to practice that aspect of its own light self, which is forgiveness. So, and it also refers to what we know in so many mystical traditions, and the shamanic tradition as well. You know, we've all been both sides, right? We've all been the persecuted, and we've all been the persecutor. I may come into this life and perhaps I've been feeling more persecuted or victimized in this life, but there's plenty of other lives I've gotten in touch with where I was in fact the persecutor. And so we're always in this role, co-creating these experiences so we can experience these different aspects of ourselves. So going all the way back to soul land, right, and using this particular example of being with this group in the jungle, how did I contract with these souls in soul land? That I would come back in this particular time with them to be able to practice something, not just to see my wounded warrior child, right, who overcame so much and did a lot of fighting and struggling, but ultimately to shine the light of compassion on them and to be able to come into the place of forgiveness and acceptance. And that's really our full spectrum path of our warrior. And as we begin to heal the wounded parts of ourselves, we're coming into this place where we understand it was all just so I could practice forgiveness. So I could tap into the light aspect of myself, which is compassion, which is deep understanding. And so that's the other side of that. And then we begin to understand, oh, maybe I don't have to be so wounded or fight or struggle so much anymore. Maybe now I can come into the place where I don't have to defend so much, because I've done so much healing and I've learned those lessons and I've experienced those aspects of my light self. So now I don't need those lessons anymore, right? We hope that's where we're getting in our soul evolution, right? We're hopefully finally learning the lesson or experiencing that aspect of ourselves. So it's not just about reclaiming the wounded part, it's about reclaiming that aspect of ourself, which is ultimate compassion, ultimate forgiveness, ultimate acceptance. And there's many tools and ways that we can go about getting to that place. And we can tell ourselves the story of, oh, we were in soul land and we contracted it and we're the co-creators. That doesn't necessarily mean it actually resonates yet, right? We've still got to go through that multiple times. But in the parable, the person who comes in as the persecutor, who has forgotten who they are too, right? They had to forget that they were love. They were actually light, and they came in as this love, the most loving way possible, and forgot who they were to help this other person experience the light forgiveness aspect, this other soul to experience that. But ultimately, they're loved too. And so people do say, and I know there's a lot of friction around this term these days, which is, it's all light and love. And it can be a spiritual bypass. But ultimately, if we step way back into soul land and into this more macrocosm, it actually was light and love at the end of the day.
Wow, thank you. Very powerful share. And yeah, we're gonna include this link, what Bonnie was mentioning, from Neil Donald Walsh, The Little Soul in the Sun, in the description. And I really recommend to all of you to watch that. It's like 13 minutes or something, because I included that for the girls for today's podcast, because I felt it's really relevant, not just personally for me at this moment, but I think, you know, just collectively as well. And my reason why I was including that was because I personally came to experience a lot of things that I thought on one level that it's impossible, you know, to forgive. And that, you know, it's something, you know, that I couldn't find in my human self, you know, that wisdom or that strength to, you know, to come to that place of forgiveness or acceptance. And I think probably a lot of the audience who is listening can relate to that. And the problem with that, you know, the inability to forgive, is that we are holding us in this prison of pain and anger, because as Bonnie was saying, you know, healing is coming to that place of acceptance and forgiveness. So I was really searching for some kind of guidance, you know, that would show me how to come to that place of forgiveness. And that's what I found also, what Bonnie was talking about. And it might be a huge trigger for some people who are listening here, you know, saying that you somehow chose the experience on some level, even if you are not aware, whatever is, you know, was your experience. But I found it to be true as well. And also when I could come to accept that responsibility and to just to see that truth, that on some level I chose this experience, this is what I wanted to experience, that taking that responsibility kind of allowed me to somehow, so to say, like rise above and go beyond the pain and go to that soul level where there was no separation and there was no pain and no suffering and no struggle. And looking from that vantage point, I could find, you know, this forgiveness in my heart and this acceptance that I don't think, you know, we can find on the human level often. And I understand why it is so difficult or sometimes impossible. And I do believe that that's the only way to find or to come to that place, to go to the soul level where we see things from a different vantage point. And that helps us to reconnect to that power and that love and that essence, that from that place we can hold ourselves, you know, and we can hold that pain and that suffering and that brokenness, and we can heal it from there. And because the soul is not hurt and it's not fragmented and it's not afraid, and it has this divine power, as Bonnie was saying, to heal and to integrate and come back to this wholeness and to remember who we are and why we are here and why things are happening the way they are, and to ultimately, you know, change that and choose something different. Because now we have that power and we have that choice once we become aware and we become responsible to say, no, this ends here now, and I am not a victim anymore, and I'm not a prey anymore, and I choose love over fear. And I think, you know, that you know, all of us who experience this just find enormous healing and relief, you know, to reconnect to this aspect to ourselves that can hold all of that we are talking about, all the unspeakable things and all the things that we thought that it's impossible to forgive or to accept. So thank you for that, Bonnie, to bringing this up. And yeah, it's an emotional call for all of us, but it's also so very healing. So yeah, Casey, passing you the stick to share some words.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful story. I agree. I loved the part. It was just like I was here for you to remember, and it was like the collective part of it that was just really beautiful, the way that explained it. So I hope people get a chance to go in the show notes and click on that video, because it was really powerful, obviously. And so, yeah, as far as when things come up, just like now, which we've all experienced, when emotions come up and we go back and reflect to that space in time of what we're healing, and it's all super hard to go there. Hard, maybe beautiful, releasing, but when you breathe through it, especially like Bonnie, when you're talking about, the fear of, COVID or whatever, it's just like, I remembered when all this started and I was like right there in it, and just looking back of like, I was like putting on double gloves, and I'm like, who is that girl? Like, when you get in a space of fear, everything goes out the window when it comes to rationality, thinking clearly, like it doesn't exist. So first of all, I stop and I breathe, and that just releases. And then just remembering, this is a lesson. It's not, the things aren't being done to me, they're being done for me. So there's lessons in it all, and we've gone through, like, there are things worse than death. So the fact that we've survived what we've survived, I'm not afraid of anything. So that puts above that fear. But even those little things I see in life as an adult, like I said, right, whenever the borders opened or were closing, and I was antibacterial, like I had no idea who I was. It just takes time and breathing and sifting through. And some days I feel I've got it better than other days. So I think it's just learning as we go, not beating ourselves up when we don't respond in a way that we necessarily would like to. Forgiving ourselves and other people when all of that occurs. But it's been a learning experience, and finding my soul and the light in the midst of that has just been a really beautiful discovery within myself. And I'm grateful for all of it, and for you guys, like, helping me find pieces of mine, because it's women and men and just people coming together and sharing their light and their stories and their pasts to really be able to support each other and be empathetic and understand what people are going through in a level where we can have an open heart with them and hold their hand through some really tough stuff, because life gets pretty rocky.
Totally. I just watched not so long ago, this documentary came out, The Wisdom of Trauma, with Dr. Gabor Mate. Really also recommend it to our audience that you sign up and support, them and this documentary, so it can reach, all the people. And there was this one super powerful scene in the documentary where they do these programs in prison to kind of offer therapy and healing for the inmates, which is I deeply resonate with. As we talked about, that a lot of people don't turn out to be like murderers and rapists and all that stuff, just because, they inherited some genes, but trauma, accumulative trauma leads most people, to commit these kind of acts. And anyway, there is this beautiful organization, I forgot the name, who is going into prisons and approaching it, from a healing perspective too. And they had this huge circle in the prison yard, and the woman was standing with a microphone in the circle, and all around these like super hardcore looking men, this big like savage looking man with tattoos and just rough, like how you would imagine, a criminal to be, how you program to imagine these people to be. And the woman who was standing in the middle and was leading this exercise, she just asked this question and said, everybody who ever experienced, physical abuse or beaten or hurt in their home, take a step forward. And then everybody took a step forward. And then everybody who was ever abused, who were denied, kicked out, take a step forward. And everybody took a step forward, and it just went on and on. Everybody who never received any love or kindness or so on and so forth. And you could see these people, just taking steps forward, all of them, while in the end they were all standing in the middle of the circle, and most of them were crying, and was really like kind of like a powerful emotional moment just to see, you know, how beyond that look, beyond that physical surface, you know, what was accumulated there and what were the steps, you know, that brought these people, you know, to be in that place now. And I just, yeah, I feel, you know, that that was such a powerful moment of awakening and healing, you know, for me and for all of us, just to acknowledge that the pain and the fear, you know, distorts us and makes us do things, you know, that, as Casey said, they are not logical, not reasonable, not even humane a lot of times, certainly not loving. Because we live in this prison of fear and we live in this sea of pain, and it's just like acting out, you know, from that space. And when we are acting out from that space, we are just creating more of that and inflicting more pain. And I think, you know, one of the roots, you know, and for people who are listening, how can you identify, you know, that child and the characteristics of your wounded child and what is going on with you? Good question to ask is, who did you need to be for the love and acceptance of your parents or primary caregivers who were raising you? Because you learn very, very soon, you know, in life that you have to behave in a certain way to be loved and accepted. That love is not unconditional, that if you do these things, you're gonna be loved and accepted, and if you do those things, you're gonna be hurt and rejected and pushed out from the community. And I think, you know, that our need for love and connection goes even beyond our physical needs, you know, and it's a basic need for us in order to live, you know, to find the desire and the courage and the commitment, you know, to this life. And we learn very early that we have to be a certain person and we have to suppress other parts of us that are not okay to express and to show in order so we can belong and we can receive that love that is like essential to survive. And I think that certainly for me, one of the things that was required from me in order to be loved, and I think a lot of women and probably men also can resonate with it, but I just have more experience with women, was obedience. That I have to obey, like what the authority says, what my parents say, what the teacher said, what the doctor said. And all these people are above me, they are stronger than me, they are smarter than me, they know better what is good for me, and I have to obey. And if I'm obedient, then everything is going to be okay. And if I don't obey or try to go against, you know, the rules, then I will be punished. And I think, you know, that for me that created, you know, this inability to speak out a lot of things or to even say no in many situations when I wanted to say no, because it was so strongly drilled into me, you know, to obey, that it took a lot of internal work and awareness and love and healing to kind of change my perspective and to see that this is not right, you know, this is not always right, and it's certainly not good for me, because the obedience where it led me, it was not that things got better, but on the contrary, they just got worse and worse and worse. You know, the more I obeyed to external forces, the more I went against my own self and my own instincts and my intuition and my body wisdom and what I felt and knew to be true and what my inner self was telling me to do, because it was just such a huge clash, you know, in between the two things. And it was, yeah, a lot of work, you know, to rewire that to step out of that and to claim back that voice and to claim that courage and to understand, you know, that I'm not less than, as other people are not more than me, you know, and who knows what's best for me is me. And ultimately, because nobody knows me, you know, to that level that I know myself. So I think, you know, this is a good question to ask: who did you need to be in order to receive the love and acceptance from your parents, from your family, from your environment, from your caregivers, and there you can find that thread, you know, where you can start walking down and kind of unravel, you know, all these things that we are sharing here today. So, Bonnie, do you have anything to add right now?
Sure. Yeah. I'd like to stay on the topic of obedience as one of the aspects that has a light and a shadow to it, right? Because of course, to a certain degree, say our parents want us to obey certain rules for safety, right? You don't go outside, you know, and play in the street, right? Because or we don't go play out by the pool because maybe we're not old enough to know how to swim yet if we fell in the pool, or we don't know how to look across, you know, to cross the street properly. And so in that aspect, you know, obedience of rules can be a really good thing, right? Because it's keeping us safe, it's keeping us from harm. uh the trouble begins because we then have to we learn that if we don't obey in other ways, which actually, you know, are not put in place to keep us safe, right? They're put in place to keep us quiet or shut down, uh, or even, you know, to perhaps even designed to put us in harm's way, right? Like there's many of us who were taught we don't defy authority, we always obey, respect our elders, and then the elder, you know, the authoritative figure might be telling us to do something which is actually quite harmful, right? And then they tell us don't tell, and we have to obey that too because we were conditioned to understand that we obey, right? We obey the rules at all costs, even if it's in some way harming us. And it can harm us on very subtle levels, as we know, just by being shut down, not being able to express our emotions, not being able to cry, right? That can be a rule. Obey. You shush, don't cry. Yeah? Don't be mad. You know, that's not becoming of a young lady to be mad, you know, to be angry. And so we're then now there's all these conditional rules set up, and we're taught we obey them, and eventually it can put us in harm's way, and over time it can manifest in all kinds of dis-ease. So there's always a because we live in a world of duality. There's always a light side and a shadow side. And so that's one thing that I think we're becoming more aware of as time goes on. And now, of course, women are being taught, right? We are taught to say no, right? We are in certain situations, right? We're taught not to obey in certain situations. But back when, you know, when you and I, Nina, when we grew up, we weren't, nobody ever taught me I could say no. You know, you said yes, you just did it because you were told to, because it was an older, your authoritative figure. It was the principal, it was the coach, it was the whoever. You did what they told you. You don't be disrespectful. You don't speak up. Mhm. So, you know, I just wanted to go deeper, basically, into that because this aspect, just this one aspect, right, of obedience and all that comes with that, right, and the conditional love that can be put around obedience. And if you obey, everything's going to be fine, and we're going to love you. And if you don't obey, wow, now you're really in trouble. And so now we can hopefully begin to understand and teach our children, no, we don't always obey. We don't always obey everyone. We listen to our body's wisdom. We listen to our intuition, right? We learn how to say no when something inside of us is telling us to say no, and that that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, everything has two sides, and as you said, but when we are adults, we have more awareness, and I think, I was more referring to those situations what Casey was mentioning earlier, than when when we are triggered, when we are afraid, we go back to these old patterns, to these childhood behaviors, and if I was conditioned to obey, what it means to me when I am in fear, I'm gonna obey whatever I'm told, right? Even if it goes against my logic, my intuition, my better judgment, my body wisdom, so on and so forth. And of course, the other side is what Moni was saying, that when you are really a child, for physically you are a child, there are a lot of rules that are serving your safety and your well-being, and those are absolutely healthy and natural. So as everything, the light and the shadow is contained within, every little thing. And I think, just coming through from the obedience and what Bonnie was saying of, just keep quiet and don't tell. I find that in my life and a lot of people I work with as a therapist over 20 years, that's one of the most destructive things, secrets and things that are hidden and not spoken of. And I think, that in a way it's even more difficult to deal with it because you are either not aware because it's a secret, so you don't know, you just see the dysfunction or experience the results of that secret and that hidden thing, that darkness that you cannot speak about or ask about, or everybody is just like closing their eyes, towards that. And you are not aware, so you don't know how to process or what to process or what to heal at all. And I think that is even like going a layer deeper into this, and I think that's why it's so important that we have these spaces where we can share our stories and we can speak these things out, and hopefully people can listen, and also have the courage to speak their stories and their truth and to share, so we can really awaken and see how much damage is being done by staying quiet, by keeping things in secret, by not speaking our stories, by pretending that we are okay when we are, dying inside, and all of these things. So I'm just so grateful, to have this space, to create this space where we can, broke these rules and do something different, and hopefully inspire, other people to also open up and to speak their stories and to unravel those secrets and look beyond, what was hidden. So, Casey, anything that you want to add to this?
Sure. I'll add, also, when I was starting this whole journey, my therapist had recommended going and volunteering at like a church in those ages. So I really started with the babies and went all the way to high school, which was just life changing to go through those ages. And so now I've been kind of with the 5 and 6 year olds for now a few years. And they're just amazing humans. And when I am teaching this curriculum, which I'm not going to say, sit here and lie and say I'm always aligned with it, because I'm not, but we can tweak it. And now as an adult, I'm able to kind of send a different message to the kids because I do have that role now. So there was one of the messages on obedience. So what we talked about, well, who do we obey? And the whole message, instead of obey your authorities, obey whatever, turned into, well, who do we obey? So learning to trust yourself and learning to, like, what if your leader tells you to do something wrong? What if you're not comfortable? So it really was able me to see and then take action in my life currently to then show something different. So it's been really cool to see a positive out of what you're saying, Bonnie, like all of those lessons and stuff. So it's been fun to work with kids along the way. And really have a deep respect when they start standing up for themselves, and then you can see those pattern shifting. So yeah, it's been cool.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that, and definitely, and that is like just like a testimony of your healing and a result of all of the healing work that we are doing as an individual, as a collective, that you're not just healing yourself, but you are kind of breaking that chain of pain, as Casey was saying, that because of her experience and her healing and everything she went through, now she is able to influence next generation in a more positive way and give that wisdom, so hopefully they don't have to go through, you know, all of that difficult learning, you know, that we like experienced and we went through. And yeah, so nice to hear that. Thank you for sharing. For today, I think it's definitely more episodes are needing, you know, on this topic. It cannot be put in 1 hour, but what I would like to kind of leave our audience for today is to share some tools, you know, that we find along the way that we really worked for us to get in touch with this aspect of ourselves and to bring healing and awareness and that unconditional love. So for me, it was like writing is such a good way, like journaling or just writing, like free writing, to connect with that aspect of myself. This might not work for everybody, but you know, just to start communicating to that aspect of yourself and ask, how are you? You know, what do you need? I'm here to listen. Tell me your story, you know. And some people get into this very easily, and some people, I think, you know, have some blockage and, oh, this is not working, there is nobody there. And so you have to experiment which tool works for you. But I love this, and still up until today, writing is a big part of my personal life and my healing process. Just to as I write, I kind of go deeper, you know, and I kind of empty all these things and I communicate from my perspective, her perspective, so on and so forth. So I think, you know, to get in touch either with words or with intention or through writing or through like other practices, like for example, altered states of consciousness, you know, using plant medicine, using different tools like breath work, like shamanic journeying, to connect with this part of yourself, definitely was a big tool for me. Another, you know, very powerful tool for me was soul retrieval, because I think, you know, when like unspeakable things happen to us, like we got fragmented on a soul level, and somehow part of us kind of separates and disconnects and kind of floating somewhere, only connected with a little piece of thread. And I think soul retrieval, I can almost say, you know, from my perspective, that is essential to bring healing to the core of your being, you know, to the whole self, to recover these pieces. But I would definitely recommend that before you do that, you have some tools, you know, and you have some support to integrate that part of yourself. Because what's happening, what Bonnie was mentioning before, when you retrieve a part of you, you retrieve those memories and also the emotional content, you know, that was not processed. And you need to process in the present time. So, you know, you need to have some tools or somebody guiding you how to go through emotional release. So you're not going to suppress, you know, those emotions back, but you can allow yourself to feel those emotions. And these are normally very intense emotions that come up. And you allow yourself to feel and experience that, and also to express it in a healthy way that is a learning experience. Because again, a lot of people do not know how to express, because their whole life they were told, you shouldn't feel this way, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't be angry, don't cry, so on and so forth. So we sometimes do not even know, you know, how to do it. So emotional release, definitely. Any kind of spiritual practice, I think, will be a great help to connect to that something greater, who we are, you know, whatever that means for you according to your belief system. And for me personally, prayer is one of the most powerful way, and I don't mean prayer in a religious context at all. What I mean by prayer is like asking from your heart, from your soul, you know, for this healing, for this integration, for this liberation from these chains and these experiences, and all of that what we carry, and to intend it, you know, to willingly give over, you know, all this to that aspect of yourself who can hold that, which is your soul. And I have have a friend, and she always says that soul is the boss, and I love that, and I just have this in my mind, you know, and that surrender, I think, is essential for healing. And I certainly had problems with this, because I understood before surrender like giving over to some kind of authority higher than me, outside of me, and I didn't want to do that, which is very understandable that, you know, you have resistance towards that. But through my journey, I understood, you know, that it's giving over to our divine self, to our God self, to our higher self, you know, who has the wisdom and the tools and the awareness and the unconditional love and the infinite resources and power to hold that, to transform that. So whatever practice can help you personally to connect to that aspect, I think, you know, it's essential to do it. And for me, last but not least, what I want to bring is nature, you know, just to draw on Mother Earth and the power of the earth and the divine feminine mother, and that nurturing, loving, caring energy, and be in nature and use nature to connect with yourself and with your body, and to connect with your own physical body, you know, with the earth and through the earth, and to start honoring yourself, you know, every aspect of yourself, the same way as we honor the earth and we honor nature. So with this, you know, I'm gonna just let the girls to pass down some of their favorite tools. Bonnie, what are your favorite tools to heal the inner child?
Thank you, Nina. Wow, you said it all, really. Thank you for this comprehensive viewpoint on all of the different tools. So what I'll do is just hit a couple of the highlights to reinforce some of the things that are maybe my favorites. And of course, you mentioned intention. And so it's got to start with intention, right? Any kind of in actually the word intention in in the medical field and in the nursing realm is to heal a wound, and that's like a definition, is to heal a wound. And so intention, and being very specific with the intention, not just like, oh, I just want to heal or I just want to be happy, but really getting to the root and then moving forth with intention to be very specific about what it is that we're wanting to heal, right? Because that's also going to guide the tools and the modalities. My favorite by far modality, which is what I use with all my clients at least once or more, and usually many times, is the quantum healing. When we go into the quantum realm, which is also known as shamanic journeying. It can even be, we can call it hypnotherapy. And so what I do in that place with clients is we call that aspect of the wounded child in. And then as the light of our higher selves, we talk to that wounded child, because the wounded child has come to heal. Otherwise, she or he wouldn't show up, uh, and wouldn't be showing up, in our lives in one way or another. And so they've come to heal, and then we go through the healing, and that can look and sound different, just depending on what it is that we're healing. But generally, there's a somatic experience in that, where we're talking to the inner child and asking them, well, where does that hurt in your body, or where do you feel that in your body? And then we, as our own inner healer, are moving into that space, and we use certain tools through the quantum space to heal that aspect of the wounded child. uh So to me, when we're able to move into that space and do that high level of work, it really is extraordinarily more powerful than anything that I've personally experienced. And then of course, like you said, Nina, when then we've got to also integrate it into this three-dimensional realm. And so the work does continue in the 3D realm, but when we travel into that alternate state of consciousness, or not an ordinary state of consciousness, the more imaginative realm, which is extraordinarily powerful, um, we do just exponentially accelerated healing in that realm. So that's for sure my favorite for healing any wounded aspect of the child, healing any trauma, any kind of resolution of trauma. You mentioned nature also, and this is so absolutely important when we learn how to use the elements, when we learn how to use earth and fire. I mean, all of these things, breath, air, in a way that we begin to understand there's actually transformation that occurs. In my shamanic lineage, we call it hucha, yeah, which is the dark, stagnant, sludgy, heavy, you know, thick density, low vibrational stuff that we carry. And we can offer this hucha back to the Mother Earth, say, in the form of land offerings. And then as we're offering and say even burying that in the earth, now we're giving it over to earth to allow earth element to begin to transform that. We can offer it to the fire, right, which is a very fast way that we can transform and transmute certain energies. uh, and we, often in say a lot of realms of healing, we don't understand, or that these elements are our allies and our friends, and they're here to help us do the healing and to transform. And so for me also, that's one of the things that I do most for my own self and with my clients, is to bring in the elements as a modality for transformation. The nature, that's what she's here for.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, definitely. I just encourage everybody to go beyond talk therapy. And I myself was trained as a psychologist, so I know what I'm talking about, that it's a very incomplete method. And there are parts of us that we all mentioned here, which is, our heart, our emotional body, our mind, and our soul, and then our physical body, and we need to address these wounds on every level, and bring healing to all parts of us, not just one little part, because that won't make huge difference. And also, just to recap back to the triggers, that we want to heal. The inner child wants to heal, wants to be free of the pain. We want to heal. Everybody wants to heal and have a full life and be happy. That is something I believe instinctual, natural, that you have this desire, coming from within. So when we are triggered, again, it is an opportunity for us to realize that healing. And I think, that to remember that, that what can we learn from this experience? How can I use this? How can I remember that this is happening for me, so I can be free, I can be whole. It is crucial to make this shift in perspective and in awareness, and not look at these things as something that you need to suppress or fight or be in war with, because that is definitely not working. To fight and to struggle, it's not gonna make it better, for sure. So thank you for bringing that, Casey, giving you the stick, love.
Yeah, just briefly, two things that I do. All of that is, yes, the nature. Gardening is watching something grow from a seed, that something you can eat, is just like just such a power. It's super high vibrational to me to just get my shoes off and go in the garden and just work in there. But also this I use just about every day, and it's releasing emotional patterns with essential oils. And so if I wake up and I feel tired or depressed or lonely or whatever, I go to that emotion, then I find the oil, and then there's the trigger points. So I work a lot with those, especially Idaho blue spruce is like a super high vibrational oil. So if I feel that muck, just putting a few drops in my hands, deep breath in, swallow, breathe out, do that a few times, and it's amazing just that shift and what an oil can do. But it'll shift if I'm super low. So I remember those pretty frequently because it's been a huge tool in the last like 3 years that I've been working with other plants. I've been really embraced the oils.
Awesome. I love essential oils, and it's such a good tool, you know, and it affects your nervous system, I think, the fastest way, like through the olfactory system, and that's one of the fastest way to create change in the nervous system. So definitely recommending, you know, people to look into that. And I just love, you know, that the cat is there, and we did so many recordings, and I think that's the first time, you know, that the cat was there, and the your other kitty was there too. Mm-hmm. And you know, in my lineage, when I was trained in shamanism, you know, they believe that cats are portals actually to the astral realm, and I don't know if this is true, but I believe it. And yeah, I just want to believe, you know, that today we are in the presence of this amazing portal, and we are sending out all this love and healing and these messages, you know, into the astral and into all the worlds, you know. So it's very, I feel very honored to be in the presence of, what's her name?
Oh, this is Natalie. Natalie actually adopted me. Yeah, and then Navi is the one with 3 legs. I don't know if you saw her, but I'm a photographer, so people think that's funny. But yeah, she was ran over by a car, and my mom found her, and so yeah, they both adopted me actually.
That's
One
awesome.
thing I'd like to add in, just because we do have the cat here, of course, is cats are ultimate self-healers. And one of the ways, of course, that they heal is to purr. And so I didn't bring that in today, but I'm big proponent of using our voice, of course, and using our voice and to heal. And so for me, the cats are one of our ultimate teachers in how to use sound and vibration to heal our bodies. So just to bring that in as well, to hum to ourselves and different things like that are also extraordinary ways to heal.
I have a Native American flute that I play, and it's a huge heart opener. I'm not great. I don't know any songs. It's just directly from the heart. But that's, yeah, all of those things. I'm great.
Absolutely, yeah. Sound healing, all kinds of instruments. Singing bowl is also one of my favorite, and chimes, you know, just like super beautiful. So yeah, there are many tools, and yeah, to close it with, my message would be that everything can be healed, you know, no matter how dark or deep. We can heal it by, and for me, healing is awakening and remembering that we are not that darkness and not that pain, and to reconnect, you know, to that true self, you know, who can hold all this and bring this all together. And yeah, I'm really passionate about that, obviously. You know, my whole life is probably, you know, possibly all that's all my life purpose, you know, what I'm doing here and why I'm here for. And yeah, I want to mention our workshop, which is coming up again the 28th of August, Saturday, Healing the Mother Wound, where we dive in to heal the birth trauma. That is a big part of that wounded child, what we were talking about here today, and we didn't go into this topic so much, but yeah, that's what we're going to focus on. And this workshop is for men and women equally, you know. It's not only for women, it's everybody who was birthed through a mother. and was birthed into this world, so to say. And we create this space to do some practical things. So we do shamanic journeying and we do breath work. And we also share and come together into healing community. So that's another, part that maybe I want to close with, is that to do it together, it amplifies our power, it amplifies our courage also, because sometimes it's not easy to go there alone to visit these places. So we are creating these communal spaces every month for all of you who want to just take a step, in healing yourself and healing that inner child and healing that mother wound, and just come back into a natural state of wholeness. So we're gonna have that in the description as well, the link for that, or you can go to avatarhealingarts.com, healing the mother wound, and find the information there and register there. And also just to if you have any questions or comments, you can make that in the comment section, and we're gonna read all of that. So I'm gonna just give the chance to my sisters to any last words or message that you want to put out there, Bonnie, before we finish.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. Well, first of all, just thank you so much to you and to Casey. What I would like to put out there today is, just to use this perhaps this moment, for this to be your moment right here, right now, to just stop and take a breath and to just go inward for a moment, to send some beautiful healing light and love through your whole body. And to radiate and emanate that beautiful healing light that you are out into the space around you. And just to remember, you are the inner healer, you are the light. And sometimes we need to come together to just create a moment of time where we can just step into that and actually feel it and remember it. So thanks for stepping into that moment with me here right now. I need it too.
Thank you. Thank you for having this space, Nina, creating this space. Today, I feel like it's pretty heavy for all of us. So I really love you girls. I love this connection. So I hope we get to do this again, Bonnie and Nina. I know I'll see you again, but it's just been, today has been a very special, I feel like a really special podcast today. We're pretty vulnerable and opened up. So I want to thank you both for all of that and being here.
Thank you, sisters. Same here. I feel honored and privileged and grateful to share this space, and also to witness each other, and share our hearts with others a little bit. And to our audience, definitely it's going to be more episodes on healing the inner child and how to do it. And maybe if you want to do something more practical, come to the workshop Healing the Mother Wound. And if you want to know more about Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy, check out my book Heart Medicine, Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy and the Integration Process on Amazon or on my website. And listen to this podcast and please share it with other people who might benefit, from these messages. Even people who don't necessarily work with this medicine, I think they can gain great insight and learn some tools, because with or without the medicine, we are on the same path, I believe. And just lots of love and gratitude from my heart to all of your hearts, and sending oceans of love. Thank you.